how would you tell people that results? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Kent with Bent 77 Unexpected, because it's a surprise Kent with Bent, because normally we do these on Tuesdays, but Bent wanted to do it on today too.
Yeah, I was like, hey, surprise Kent with Ben sometime.
Yeah.
And then you were something like, how about Saturday? Okay.
Yep.
A little more to it than that, but not much more to it than that.
Yeah, very little more to it. If you want, you can double check. There's a different thumbnail that I made. So there you go. Yeah, this is just a Kent with Bent, but we're doing it on a Saturday afternoon. But I still have a bunch of whiskey and cola in a glass. I went out and got it yesterday. I walked myself down to the grocery store so I would have some booze for today, because I didn't. Yeah, I know it's too early for drinks. So, hey, but it's the weekend, though.
If it's too early, do what I do and drink water that has flavoring in it. I use the Kroger brand liquid water enhancer, they call it. It's just like Mio, that's all.
Yeah. All right, so for anyone who might not know, Kent with Bent, we talk about the ridiculousness of Kent Hovind. We're currently going through his Creation Science Evangelism 201 class, which is his 101 and 201 are like super deep dives into the crazy world of Kent Hovind, like the alternate reality that is the Kent Hovind verse. And it gets kind of crazy. It also sometimes gets kind of tedious because Kent Hovind deep dives are nonsensical. In case anyone is wondering, I am probably going to be stopping the poll for the new emoji at the end of the day. And by stopping, I just mean looking at the results. Right now, citation needed is running away with it. So there's almost 200 votes on that poll. And right now, almost 70% of them are for citation needed. So
good options. But
yeah, I
agree. I did vote for citation needed also.
Yeah, but what that means is if you're watching this on the day it comes out, which is the 5th of March 2022, and you want it to be either a Angry Goblin or an Annoyed Dapper, you have, a few hours to rally a few hundred of your favorite friends and steal that vote. So I do want to get into, though, we have a drinking game. So here's the drinking rules for the drinking game. 1, we drink whenever Kent Hovind says something that's just kind of so stupid that we just have to. Also, by the end of the game, that just usually turns into any time he says something wrong. It doesn't start that way, though, because I like to ease into it. We also drink whenever he gets something right that isn't just a quotation from someone else. We'll take a drink whenever he tells a story that we're pretty sure it didn't happen. We'll take a drink whenever he tells a joke that doesn't land. We'll take a drink whenever one of the Toho Kaiju stop by. There's a few ways it can happen, one of which is hearing an audio cue, which will be either a Mothra or a Godzilla roar. Another one is, if you are a member, there are a number of Kaiju emojis you could use. If you put them in a super chat, no matter what the super chat's about, if they're anywhere in there, we'll take a drink for that. Also, this is for anyone, including channel members, but not necessarily. Because AIG has a long history of copyright claiming basically anything, if you super chat anything to the effect that AIG is a bag of dicks, we will drink. However, careful, because YouTube likes to censor a whole lot of that stuff. So you have to come up with interesting ways to say it. Let's see. We also drink whenever Kent brings up the National Socialist German Workers' Party, prominent members thereof, or their activities anytime during the 30s or 40s or so. Because he does that a lot. And I don't think I'm missing any, am I? Oh, predictions.
Bad predictions?
Yes, predictions. So if one of us says, oh, I think his argument's going to be this, or this is the next place he's going to go, and if it is, well, then we take a drink. I also want to say that Inkboy for €5 says, I took a bunch of Illinois Christian Science churches and put them all back into a sack and called it AIG. Nice. Take a drink. Although I will say, I actually don't know, if AIG is down with, the Christian Science, because Christian Science is its own, sect of Christianity. And I know of a lot of Christians who are they're nah, they don't really count. Because, they have a prophetess, and also they reject all forms of medical treatment. which is at least for your kids, I consider that child abuse. I honestly think that children who are in religions that just reject healthcare or major aspects thereof, like Jehovah's Witnesses or Christian Scientists, when it comes to their medical care, it should not be left up to their parents. I think that's abuse, to just not let them get any healthcare or not let them get blood transfusions. Like, I don't care. Anyway, let's instead of talking about the suffering of children under crazy religions, let's get some Kent Hovind in so we can talk about someone who causes children to suffer for his crazy religious views. Damn it.
Hope everyone's having a good day so far.
Hey, yay!
How you doing, chat?
Yeah, I'm gonna need to drink for this.
This is part of the evolution theory.
Oh, he's talking about various things that aren't actually part of evolution, but that are part of the scientific consensus nonetheless, and he's conflating it with evolution. Right.
Then the book says 3.9 billion years ago, Earth cooled down enough for it to begin to rain. And it rained and rained and rained and rained and rained and filled the oceans with water. And in the oceans, the first living organisms appeared. This guy says millions of years of torrential rains created great oceans. And swirling in the waters of the oceans is a bubbling broth of complex chemicals. Progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. Sure is. It don't even happen. That's how slow it is.
So, basically, once again, we're just doing abiogenesis. And here's the thing. How abiogenesis occurred and how it can occur is currently still an open question. But there's a lot of research being done on it. And like, if you want to have a particular take, like, oh, I don't think we're ever going to solve the problem, and therefore that's where I'm going to insert my God of the gaps. Okay, but that's not a good reason not to tell students about, like, the basics of the research, right? Oh, Inkboy makes a good point. Yeah, by the way, guys, don't play along unless you really feel like you can do so safely with the drinking game, because we take no responsibility or liability for damage to yourself or others or property or pets or anything else like that, right? This is an at-your-own-risk drinking game. Normally, I wouldn't even be drinking this early.
Don't drink too much water either.
Henry Hansen says that this sounds like an old book. Yeah, this is a book from 1994. Now, I have been informed that apparently this talk was given in the late 90s, so it's old for us, but it might not have been old at the time. But here's the thing about abiogenesis, right? Kids should know that there is research being done on it, and they should know about some of the relatively firm conclusions. Like, is there are a number of potential well-supported solutions to the problem of homochirality in life. So, as you might know, certain molecules can have can lack a line of symmetry, sort of like your hand, right? Your hand on its own has no symmetry, which is why your left and your right hand are mirror images of each other, but you can't simply swap one for the other, right? So you can put them together palm to palm and they line up. But if you try to put them like palm to back of the hand, you get the thumbs sticking out in different ways and whatnot. That's because they have chirality. Molecules are like that too. And life has certain classes of chemicals with chirality. It uses all the same chirality for all of them, which is a weird thing. How do you get a homochiral mixture when most processes give you, roughly even mixes? Yeah, we have solutions for this. Things like repeated condensation reactions, growing these chemicals in certain environments near naturally occurring minerals can do some stuff like that. Or like, hey, how do we get like metabolism? Well, it turns out you don't even need life or genetics to have metabolism. We can create hypercycles, which are contained inside a membrane and have their own metabolism and seek out energy gradients to use. So, like, this is stuff that is important to tell kids. Like, we have some answers to this, but it's not a completely known phenomenon. Like, we don't have the whole thing figured out yet. So we should not lie to kids and tell them that we have no ideas. But we also shouldn't lie to them and say that, oh yeah, we have it all figured out and it was definitely this process and whatnot. Because that's also not true. We don't have it figured out.
Also, Kent seems confused on what abiogenesis really means. He thinks there was a period of time where there was no life, and then there was life suddenly. Like, how does he think that happened?
I don't know.
God created it. Okay, well, what would that look like? God created it. It would look like abiogenesis.
Yeah, you would think so.
And evolution up to the point of whatever creature is being described. And God created man could be no life, abiogenesis, and evolution up until there's man. All of that could fit in there from Kent's perspective. He chose to think about it just a little bit more scientifically.
Why would he do that?
But why would he do that? If God created man is what, 3 or 4 words? It must have happened instantaneously for no reason. Why?
All right, here we go.
Here's an article just a few weeks ago in the University of Bath. The scientists crack the 40-year-old DNA puzzle and point to hot soup at the origin of life. New theory that explains why the language of our genes is more complex than it needs to be. Also suggests that the primordial soup where life began on Earth was hot, not cold, as many scientists believe. Yep, the first self-replicating systems must have emerged in this organic soup. According to the Big Bang Theory, 20 billion years ago, Big Bang. 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down, rained on the rocks for millions of years, turned them into soup, and the soup came alive.
What? No.
3 billion.
What? No. Most of that is not part of the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, so...
You can't say according to the Big Bang Theory and then say all the stuff unrelated. That's called lie.
Yeah, that's...
Or misunderstanding.
Well, so the thing is, he's been corrected enough times that he should know better. And here's the thing, right? You're allowed to disagree with the nebular hypothesis and the Big Bang Theory and the theory of evolution. Like, no one's going to haul you off to jail, right? But the thing is, you should disagree with those things and name them like independently and not pretend they're all part of the same thing. Because let's say we have the nebular hypothesis.
Big Bang and nebular hypothesis as one theory and say it doesn't make sense.
Well, the thing is, the nebular hypothesis is older than the Big Bang Theory. Back when people were still thinking that the universe was somehow mostly steady state, and people were saying, well, maybe like new galaxies are generated in the gaps between galaxies as the universe spreads, so in the long term it's steady state, or maybe this redshift that we're seeing is, it's not really universal expansion, maybe there's some other explanation for it. But when that was still like reasonably valid, these ideas, people were saying, well, the solar system probably, accreted from a nebular cloud of various, chemicals, like mostly hydrogen, but there were some heavier elements in there like iron and silicon and whatnot. And that was a much older hypothesis. So it in no way depends on the Big Bang Theory. Basically, as long as the universe is old enough for the planetary nebula from which the solar system accreted to exist, then how the universe got here doesn't really matter. Also, the primordial soup hypothesis, which Nestle 20 is pointing out, is it's pretty on the outs nowadays. There's a lot of other things like metabolism first, RNA world, hypercycle, stuff like that, which I'm not an expert on, which is why I don't really talk about it. But I am aware that they exist and that they are much more recent and better supported than just sort of like, oh, a whole bunch of really complicated chemistry was happening in a pool. And so, yeah. Here we go.
Years ago. And that first life form found somebody to marry. There's a good trick, and something to eat, of course, and slowly evolved into everything we see today.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink for implying that the first life form was a obligate sexually reproducing organism. The vast majority of life forms on the planet are not obligate sexually reproducing. Now, many of them have the option to sexually reproduce, and this actually goes like all the way into like, land vertebrates, right? Like many snakes and lizards don't have to sexually reproduce, at least the females, but they can. And so, like all bacteria, essentially all single-celled organisms are not obligate sexually reproducing. The first organism to ever exist couldn't have been sexually reproducing, and reproduction is a thing that can happen before you even have life. So, for instance, there are, in terms of like abiogenesis research, we have situations where we have a particular substrate that can be used as a bit of an energy source for just some naked RNA strands. And then there are the various chemicals that you need to make new RNA strands. And so you can actually get RNA strands competing for both energy and the building blocks for new RNA in a laboratory experiment where they then evolve to become more efficient self-replicators. Now, they usually don't directly self-replicate. usually what they do is they'll make the mirror image RNA strand, which will then break away, and then itself make a mirror image, which is the original. So you have sort of a flip-flop reproduction, where you go from, you know, side A to side B, if you're talking about like making a cassette tape analogy, which now I realize one dates me and no one understands, because when was the last time anyone said, oh, I better flip to side B of a cassette tape? Sorry guys, I'm ancient. What do you want from me?
That's probably when you were 149 million.
Yeah, basically. So, but yeah, that's the thing. Like, reproduction comes before life. Metabolism probably comes before life. DNA probably doesn't even come until well after life. And if you're, you know, big on the RNA world. So, yeah, basically all of this is nonsense. So, yeah, basically the things that Kent thinks need to be in place all at once actually come into place independently beforehand, and then they combine into the first organisms. And sexual reproduction comes way later. By the way, here's a fun fact. Some reptiles, instead of using an XY sex determination, use a VW or WV, I don't remember, sex determination, where the sex that has the extra off chromosome is actually female instead of male, like it is in mammals. And when those organisms reproduce asexually, they produce males. So that happens in some snakes. So like I think pythons can reproduce asexually, but the ones they reproduce are all male, which actually then sets up, if a bunch of, say, female snakes wash up on an island somewhere, they then all reproduce asexually to produce males, which then can go on and mate with the females who are already there. So they can establish a breeding population with males and females just by colonization of a few females, which I think is kind of cool. Yeah, WZ, Inkboy says WZ, he's right. Sorry. I was not expecting to talk about chromosome-based sex determination in snakes today, so I did not brush up. So yeah, it is WZ. Sorry about that. Another fun way of sex determination is what wasps and ants and bees do. Those are hymenopterans. They do haplodiploid. So diploid individuals are female, haploid are male. So the male only gets like 1/2 of a genome. Let's see. Dr. Osiris, who has been a member at the level of Tetrapod for 8 months, says, a drink for each month. Go. Sorry, you didn't include a kaiju emoji. So I will say thank you for being a member for 8 months, and I'll take a drink for that, because that is worth a drink, because cheers. All right, here we go.
So your great grandpa was soup. That's the Big Bang Theory in a nutshell. Anyway.
No, that's Abiogenesis. I'll just take a drink for it.
Right. So they teach we all came from a rock, which I think has got.
No one teaches that we came from rock. Just take another drink.
To be.
Well, okay. So
man comes from dust.
Yeah, so the Bible does say that man was formed from the dust of the earth, which, given that there wasn't like a long history of life before that, would primarily have been composed of like tiny little bits of mineral. So it's actually more accurate to say that creationism says that humans came from rocks, but yeah. Oh, should I say WZ? Is that what you're looking for, the Sisyphean bead? Sorry, I live in a part of the world where English speakers use the letter Z instead of Z. But I do have a Z staff on my my main set for Dapper Dino stuff, so at least there's that. Anyway.
I've said it 100 times, thousands of times. That's got to be the dumbest idea in the history of humanity.
I mean...
Would you make a stupid straw man that is accurate?
But here's the real question. Is it dumber than openly flouting tax laws and stating publicly that you haven't filed taxes for decades, and then being all surprised and offering essentially no legal defense when you're then arrested for tax fraud? Because I think that's stupider.
That might be.
Yeah. By the way...
Is that as dumb as the Hovind theory?
Here's a fun thing. Look, as you guys know, I have some sources from like former insiders at Dinosaur Adventureland. Apparently, Joe Hovind used to not infrequently get phone calls from women who were just besides themselves crying because their husbands had followed Kent Hovind's tax advice and were now in prison. So, yeah. That's during this time. During this time, Joe Hovind would receive phone calls. Joe Hovind being, oh, drink for Godzilla. Joe Hovind being
upsetting.
Ken's first wife, and yeah, their husbands were in prison for years. Yeah, it's really upsetting. Like,
some of these people are like following Ken. Trust the guy, you think he figured it out. No.
I promise you,
now you're
Kent
in prison.
Hovind did not outsmart the IRS. This is a guy who doesn't understand like what a hip is when he's talking about whales. Like he doesn't know the first thing about anything. He doesn't know what a dinosaur is, despite calling himself Dr. Dino. He doesn't know who wrote the books of First and Second Timothy.
Interesting question when asked.
Right.
Like, how would you identify a skeleton found on a dinosaur or not? Interesting question.
Yeah. So
you should know that if you call yourself Dr. Dino.
So obviously, do not take his tax advice. Okay, so Sisyphine V is asking about WZ. Okay, so I'll go through the whole chromosomal sex determination for XY versus WZ. Okay, so in XY sex determination schemes, a double X chromosome, now this is ignoring things like, pathological conditions, hormone production problems, like we're talking normal, non-pathological production of primary sex characteristics. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, XX will result in a female individual, and XY will result in a male individual. The Y chromosome in lineages that use XY chromosome determination tends to become degenerate because its only major function is to carry the gene that causes production of male primary sexual characteristics. In WZ, WW individuals become male, and WZ for individuals become female, which means that the Z chromosome is then the one that's going to become reduced. But it also means that if you have, say, parthenogenetic species like these pythons, right? So what you do is they end up almost going through meiosis, but instead of actually splitting into haploid cells, they retain the diploid status. And by the way, Deviantic TV has been a member for 11 months at the tetrapod level, who says AIG have blown in from Penn Island with a Mothra emoji. So we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. Actually, we'll take 2 drinks because that's a Mothra emoji and an AIG or a bunch of dicks.
That's pretty clever. I like it.
I do too. I especially like the clever capitalization of the L to help separate the Penn is and land, even though it says Penn Island.
Like how they've also blown in.
Yes. The whole thing is very clever. So anyway, yeah, that's how WZ basically works. So because just like if you had a YY individual, that wouldn't work. You wouldn't have the necessary genes on the X chromosome. If you have a ZZ individual, you won't have the necessary genes from the W individual. So you can't make a female parthenogenically. You can only make males in that case. Whereas if you have organisms that reproduce parthenogenically that are XY, like some lizards, like whiptail lizards, I believe. Well, they no longer have males anymore, but yeah, they produce females when they reproduce asexually, which basically they all do because there basically are no male whiptail lizards anymore. Which, by the way, is a kind of lizard that I see pretty often because there's a lot of them around here. So, why is it called WZ? I don't know, man, because you had to pick a letter. Why is they called X and Y? Who decided which number each chromosome would get? You got to give them something. How come up and down quarks are called up and down instead of left and right? You just pick. All right, here we go.
Just so dumb. When you stop and think about it, you'd have to be blinded. The Bible says they did not want to retain God in their knowledge, so God will send them strong delusion. God himself would be required to make somebody deluded enough to believe their grandfather was a rock. Just think about it, Anyway, who did Adam's sons marry?
Who thinks that, Kent?
Yeah.
The one who thinks that.
That's...
I don't know what to say.
Kent's basic MO really is just set up absurd strawman that no one actually advocates for. And then say, isn't that dumb? And then everyone is like, yes.
And it's like projecting too.
Yeah.
Not only is it dumb, you're the one who thinks it.
Yeah,
So you're calling yourself dumb without even realizing it. You're double dumb.
It is a very, very strange thing. All right, here we go.
Compared to the evolutionist problem, our problem is very minor. Because they believe, the first human couple have ancestors, which was a rock.
Okay, let's take a drink real quick. Okay, so to be an ancestor, that means there has to be a line of genetic descent, which means there has to be a genome involved with genetic material. Okay, we're going to take a quick poll of the audience. Okay, here we go. Do rocks have a genome? We're going to have yes, no, and yes because they're atheists. Okay. So feel free to vote. I'm going to tell you right now that I'm very confident that rocks do not have a genome, regardless of their views about God. So.
But I feel like option 3 might win.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, so even if you came from a place somehow, some organism came from a place that didn't have a genome, that's still not part of its ancestry, right? So for instance, I could say that you came from the food that you eat, because all of the physical mass that makes you up comes from the food and water that you eat and drink, right? Does that mean that your ancestor are those like potatoes and cows and ears of corn and grains of wheat? Well, no, because you didn't get any of your genetic information from them. None of your genome came from your food. So yeah, no, that's not your ancestors. Similarly, even if it were true that life just sprang out of rocks, like Ken Hovind likes to pretend is the scientific view, that still wouldn't make that your ancestor a rock. So he's just double wrong, which is why I'm going to take another drink. Plus, I'm thirsty. You know what? There you go. So we're going to hit play unless, Ben, you had anything to add?
Double dumb. That's my
Double
new
dumb.
drinking rule.
Okay.
When he's basically projecting and strawmanning at the same time so that he's calling himself wrong without realizing it, it gets a little complex. I call it a double dumb and drink, and that's going to be the rule.
I do like, by the way, that while no is winning handsomely, the only votes for yes are under the because they're atheists meme option. So thank you very much. I do appreciate it. We're not going to get into the whole rock atheist thing, but yeah.
No.
Kind of are in a way because you put it as a poll option, but that just might be the extent of how far we get.
That's fair. That's the extent of it.
Bottleneck. What is the gene code of a rock?
Exactly, Kent. Hey, oh my! I don't know if that's I'm gonna drink because it's correct or because it's dumb or both, but I'm gonna take a big old swig. Forget this straw of this whiskey cola because, like, exactly, Kent. That's why no one thinks what you think they think.
But you pretend to think they think, because come on, Kent.
Oh yeah, he almost certainly knows better.
You know better.
But does he know that we know that he knows better?
Should by now.
Okay. Here we go.
Who's the guy? Is it one of the guys called into the program? He said it was rocks, plural. Jared, yeah. It wasn't a rock, it was rocks. Oh, okay. A pink one and a blue one. Yeah, right. Okay.
I'm going to take a drink for a story that I don't think happened.
Take a drink for a joke that he no one laughed at.
Good point. That's 2 drinks. And I'm going to end up hammered at like 2 p.m. You know that, right?
I prefer my method, the one with no alcohol in it.
Someone has to be playing by the real rule. No, it's not the real, but whatever. Look, I understand. Part of the reason people come is because it's fun to watch me get angrily drunk while yelling at Kent Hovind. I get it, and I'm okay with it.
Well, if you want to drink alcohol too, you can relate to that. And if you don't, you can relate to me.
2 rocks as ancestor. Well, who did Adam's sons marry? Well, it's real simple. Adam, the days of Adam after he begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters.
All right, I want to say thank you very much to Star Runner, who said for $10, smash that like button. But I want to point out, technically, you can't smash the like button. So I would like you to gently click on it, because if you smash, you might break your mouse.
Yeah, and then smash that subscribe button.
Yeah, if for some reason you're here and you're not subscribed, do go ahead and subscribe. But yeah, really do hit like. It does help. I am seeing about 21 more likes than viewers So
I've often said, how many kids could you have in 800 years?
So there's a whole lot of assumptions that go into that. One is, are you fertile the entire time? Because I think we all know that fertility for humans declines in males, and it basically just stops in females long before 800. I mean, we do have, like, you know, Strom Thurmond, whose nickname was Sperm Thurmond for a good reason, in that he fathered his final child in, like, his 80s. He had, like, some ridiculous number of them. Longtime U.S. Senator. He was famously, virile, shall we say. But generally speaking, by the time you get into your 80s, never mind your 800s, and we're just going to ignore the fact that humans probably can't physically live that long under any conditions, that, yeah, you become significantly less fertile as a male. And as a female, I mean, you're going to hit menopause long before you even get to 80. So I'm going to go ahead and say that for a male, there's not a hard limit because, I mean, look at Genghis Khan, right? Guy had like hundreds of children. Because ultimately, if a male mates with enough women rapidly enough, then basically it's going to come out to, like, you can basically have one kid per, like, few refractory periods. So, I don't know, a few hundred. But if you're a female, the number is basically going to be about how many you can physically bear. And human females really can't go much more than one a year without causing serious harm. Because, I mean, there's an old saying, which is no longer used much, but it was used in, like, my grandmother's day, which is basically, oh, you lose about one tooth per kid. Because when she was growing up, people didn't have enough calcium to just keep being pregnant. So pregnant women would do things like lose bone mass and tooth. They would lose teeth because their body would steal the calcium from their bones to put it into the baby. So, yeah, if you go much more than one a year, you're going to have trouble. So, I mean, maybe you could get 25, 30 as a female, max. Probably, like, and I'm talking, like, you're starting early and you're having babies about as often as you can safely do it. And that's, like, max, maybe 25 or 30. So, yeah, that's a pretty good answer to that question, I think.
Several, right? Jim Bob Duggar.
Thanks for just brushing past it. And we're going to go into the Jim Bob Duggar. So get ready for this.
You're in Arkansas, a friend of mine. He's an Arkansas representative for a while. He's got 15 kids in 15 years.
Yeah, like I said, about one a year.
He may have more now. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, probably.
Well, he does now. So you know what? We're going to take a drink for Kent getting your prediction right. Also, there have been a whole bunch of scandals about things like, you know, some of his older kids preying on some of his younger kids, and there being a whole bunch of, like, you know, CP problems and arrests, and yeah, that family has kind of fallen apart. Not sure you really want to cite them positively, but then again, to be fair, this was decades ago, and Kent didn't know any of those things because no one knew those things.
We have 17, you know. We met a family from Minnesota one time with.
Oh, Silver Harlow points out, don't forget about twins and triplets. The problem there is that if you have a lot of twins and triplets, it's going to put even more strain on your body as a pregnant person. So you can't just keep popping out twins, because it's not quite twice as much, like, cost, because twins usually have lower birth weights. But, like, still, it's going to be a significant drain. You're going to have a longer period after having multiple births before your next one in order to stay safe. And remember, when I say stay safe, I mean, like, if you die early, you don't get to keep having kids. And hello, Sal. Sal is here, everybody. So everybody, I want you to say hi to Sal. And if you have the emojis, I want you to give Sal a goblin thumb up. If you're a channel member, give Sal a thumb up with the goblin. Here we go.
20 kids, all of them under 20. Hey, it's cold in Minnesota. But
oh, that was a joke that
15 kids in 15 years. Well, man, in 800 years, you could have a huge family. Now, the Jewish tradition, and it's purely Jewish tradition, says Adam and Eve had 56 children. Now, think about it. There is no reason to not have a large family. You have the whole world. I mean,
as discussed, things like calcium depletion and just the actual work it takes to raise kids. Like, honestly, do you think someone wants to be, like, wiping up baby poop for 50 years, I would get tired of it. I would get tired of it after like 5 years max. So
absolutely rent-free, no utility payments, okay?
yeah, because there's no utility scans.
Infinite food supply.
Oh wait, that was a joke that didn't land. Take a drink.
Just go ahead and have a whole bunch of kids, you know? It is so neat raising kids. I really enjoyed raising my 3, and thousands of times.
Remember, this is the video where Kent Hovind said that at one point he got his 3 kids a single soda from McDonald's and expected them to peacefully share it between them. And when they obviously couldn't because they're little kids trying to share a single cup of soda, he then just took it from them and tossed it out the window. So Kent Hovind enjoyed having kids the way that a cat enjoys playing with a mouse.
Yeah, it's psychopathic.
Yeah, this.
You know what? Ignore what I said. Psychiatrist.
Nor am I. I'm not going to try and.
Sounds messed up to me.
Yeah.
Like that.
And it was in this video when he admitted to that.
Yeah,
and
it's the episode from like 3 days ago.
Yeah, we just did the episode on Tuesday, so it was it's like 4 days ago, I guess, depending on exactly how you count.
Yeah, the number of days. Who knows how time works anyway.
Sisyphean Bede says either he didn't love raising his 3 kids or he actually has 4. No, I actually think that Kent Hovind quite enjoyed being his kind of father because he likes having power over people. I think he quite enjoyed it. I don't think he had to do any of the messy stuff, right? Like, I'm pretty sure his wife was in charge of feeding and burping and changing diapers, and Kent Hovind was in charge of weird mind games with 1 can of soda that he then throws out of the car, or beatings at the dentist office. That's what he was doing, and I'm sure he loved every minute of it. I mean, just look at the big grin he gets whenever he talks about beating his son into submission.
Up, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's very disturbing.
Yeah. Look, there's a reason none of his kids have real contact with him. Yeah. And there's a reason why none of them bring their kids to see him. This is Vian Beat says, I was talking about Kent Jr. I still think he enjoyed having power over Kent Jr.
We had more. Thousands of times. And now with the 4 grandkids, I can't wait to get more. It's like, man, come on, where's some more grandkids, guys? Let's go.
Don't pressure your kids into having grandkids. They don't appreciate it, I promise. Because they're not going to have kids any faster because you tell them to. But also, it's going to feel really awkward for them, and they're really going to hate every single time you ask them where the grandkids are. Just don't do that to your kids.
But there's a guy came visit here. He has 91 grandkids. He only brought 12 of them to Dinosaur Adventureland.
That sounds like my grandparents.
I met a family in North Carolina. The grandpa had 16 kids, and his kids averaged 6 apiece. He has 96 grandkids. Talk about a family reunion. Anyway, who did Adam's sons marry? Well, duh, they had to marry sisters.
That's supposed to be a joke? Like, talk about a family reunion?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I didn't even notice it. Yeah, take a drink.
Be a family reunion with a bunch of people.
Also, Vandalia 1998, who's been a member for 18 months at the Amniote level, thank you very much, Vandalia 1998, says, isn't double 7 supposed to be a lucky number? Watching Kenny talk doesn't seem so lucky with a Godzilla emoji, so take a drink for that. Yeah, I mean, there are people who say that 77 is a lucky number. I don't believe in lucky numbers, so maybe. But yeah, it should be. This should be our best episode because it's 77.
You need to get better Chinese food fortune cookie fortunes because the good ones have lucky numbers. They're on there. So say you don't believe in them, but I could just.
It's true. They're right there.
Right there.
That's true. All right. Well, I retract that. I do believe in lucky numbers, but I feel like there's a whole lot of them in that case. So I don't know.
Plus, they don't seem to do anything.
Yeah.
Adam.
Whatever.
People say you can't marry sister. Well, I know you can't today. At least you shouldn't, okay? For some real obvious genetic reasons, unless you're a redneck, you know. But
What?
you marry
Rednecks
they had to
don't
marry
have
sisters. Number one, there's no
obvious
other.
genetic reasons.
Yeah, so here's the thing.
Oh wait, no, he's trying to make a joke.
Well, yeah, so take a drink for the joke. So here's the thing with close kin marriages. If you're in a lineage that has no history of inbreeding, it's probably actually not going to result in a significant increase in like genetic defects, even if you reproduce with a full sibling. It's actually probably not going to result in disaster. However, if you start out with two individuals and they have a normal human genome, which means they're both diploid, and you just assume that God gave them the most genetic diversity possible, that's 4 alleles. Now, those are immediately going to start mutating, and according to Kent and people like him, those mutations can only lead to bad things, even though we know that's nonsense. But we're just going to take them at their word, which means that within only a few generations, you're going to have virtually no genetic diversity, and most of it's going to be significantly harmful. This doesn't work on its own. If you actually take young Earth creationist ideas seriously, their model falls apart. Human population could not have expanded from 2 to create the human population of today. 1, there's too much non-deleterious diversity in modern human populations. 2, there isn't really enough time to get that much diversity. 3, even with no, say, genetic load, a maximum effective population size of 2 is just not enough. You're not going to be able to adapt to new environments. You're not going to be able to overcome the fixation of seriously deleterious alleles within the population just as a result of genetic drift. Look, it just doesn't work. And the thing is, despite the fact that Kent seems to think that evolution says that humanity started with a couple, it didn't. It was a population of probably at least tens of thousands. So, here we go.
Their choice. And no one would have thought it was wrong. Number 2, who would you report them to?
Yes, Kent. I don't think anyone thinks that if your scenario were correct, there would have been some police to go, hey, my brother married my sister. Because remember, everyone's going to be their brother or sister in this first generation. Like,
such a terrible rationalization, because that could apply to, like, if there's 4 people and maybe like there's like an Adam maybe and an Eve, and then like 2 sons, and one of them kills the other son, who are you going to report him to?
Yeah,
right? Like it.
Well, it's this weird thing, because like every once in a while, Kent Hovind will flirt with legal positivism as like a moral framework, but then he'll also openly advocate for like flouting tax laws. So Kent Hovind every once in a while likes to dip into legal positivism whenever he thinks it'll help him, but he's completely inconsistent with that, because why bother being consistent with anything? Also, we're going to end this poll. So here we go.
You say, you're going to marry your sister, I'm going to tell. Oh, who are you going to tell? My brother that married his sister? Just exactly who are you going to tattletale to, you know?
For $5, Vandali 1998 says, first we have Adam and Eve bottleneck, and then if that wasn't bad enough, we get the bottleneck, the bottleneck got bottlenecked at the Ark. Yeah, so there's another problem. Your maximum population effective size at the after Noah's flood is 5, right? So because Noah's sons are all full siblings, you don't actually get any extra genetic diversity for each one. You only get the genetic diversity for Noah and his wife and their 3 wives. So that's 3 for the wives, 1 for Noah's wife, 1 for Noah, that's 5. And this is assuming that we didn't already start with a bottleneck with a population of effective population size of 2. It's very unlikely we actually managed to get the entire population up to an effective population size of 5 in the first place. So chances are you're actually starting with at the flood with an effective population size of more like 3 or 4 if we're being generous. It's probably still just going to be like 3. So, yeah. Nothing about young Earth creationism works from a genetic standpoint. You can, even if you ignore all of the geology that completely precludes a flood, doesn't matter. The genetics still aren't going to work. Which is interesting because Nathaniel Jeanson, AIG's pet, well, one of AIG's pet geneticists, they have two. They have him and Georgia Purdom. He's the one who actually seems to do more writing, and also who seems to get way more butthurt about the fact that his complete nonsense hasn't taken the world by storm. But he, despite saying that things like Neanderthals and Denisovans are just completely human and descendants of Noah, also doesn't include their genome sequences in his calculations, where he vastly overestimates the phylogenetic replacement rate by just equating it with the pedigree mutation rate. Sorry. So, despite the fact that you can't just equate those over phylogenetic time, he does, and then he says, "Oh, well, if I do that, then all human mitochondria go back to about 6,000 years." Yeah, well, except if you include those Denisovans and Neanderthals that you think are human. So what he does with that is he just pretends that we didn't really sequence their genomes. That's it. That's his solution to that. It's like, man, those don't count. Okay, sure. Because, if he did count them, that would push back his estimates into like the 20,000 year range. So, whoops. Anyway, this is not about Nathaniel Jeanson. I could go on for hours about Nathaniel Jeanson and how stupid his work is and how you don't even need any degrees in genetics to know it. But whatever. Oh, hey, Digital Demonic Davros. How are you? Nice to see you. Let's see. Ernst Patriot says, fertility was enhanced by methane ingestion. Thanks for Noah and his Yeah, it's just breathing in all those animal farts to get them really going. All right, here we go.
Thirdly, there were no laws against it until 2,500 years later. Somebody got your Bible, read Leviticus 18:6.
Okay, Ken. There was also no law given in this sense, right? Because Ken's talking about the Mosaic law, right? That's also the first time in the Bible that you actually get a law prohibiting, say, murder. But the Bible still clearly indicates that it was wrong for Cain to kill Abel. So, even if we say we're going with legal positivism from biblical law, it still isn't working because Kent can't be consistent with it. Because if you're going to say... If you're going to say that the Mosaic law determines what is right or wrong, and until it's given, you can't tell whether this thing is right or wrong, it means that there's no reason to say that Cain killing Abel was wrong, or even that eating the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was right or wrong. So going into legal positivism here doesn't help Kent at all. It's like I said, legal positivism is one of the dumbest ethical frameworks that exists. In case people don't know, legal positivism basically says what is morally permissible is what is legal, and what is morally impermissible is what is illegal. And all you have to do is find a law that you think is immoral, and there you go. You don't believe in legal positivism. That's it. That's all it takes to defeat moral positivism. Or, sorry, legal positivism. I can't talk today.
Well, there are current modern laws that say things. You have to pay your taxes. You're not supposed to beat up your spouse.
Yeah.
Apparently, those laws don't matter so much. So I don't know why he cares that.
Hi, Chesh.
There's a law.
Chesh is here.
Something. Chesh.
Everybody, send Chesh a goblin thumbs up. Because that goblin is actually based on her original character for D&D, Murphy. She came up with one day. And then I got some of her concept art and made a 3D model of Murphy. That's how that goblin exists. Here we go.
Leviticus 18, start with verse 6. Whoever's got that one first. All right, read that real loud so they can hear it on the camera there. At this point, here we have 2,500 years later, God is revealing the law to Moses on Mount Sinai. And he says, from now on, guys, you can't marry close kin.
Not quite what it said, but yeah, that it is the case. For $5 dues, Digital Demonic Davros says, I'm not prepared for that. Hovind is the last person to talk about legal versus biblical literalism. The man is just a terrible educator. No, yeah, it's horrible. it's hard to find anything he gets right about the law or about the Bible or about biology. I mean, look, I'll just say it again. Kent Hovind thinks that Timothy wrote the books of 1st and 2nd Timothy, even though they both start with an address from Paul to Timothy. Inkboy for €5 says, in D&D, I bought a bag of holding and put in only carrots. Yeah, there we go. Cucumbers, pickles, and sausages, and called it AIG. I was not expecting that, Em. All right.
Nice.
Take a drink for that. That was really good.
I was going to say, does Kent think maybe they changed the meaning of the word to and from since those books were written?
Yeah, it was
maybe the Greek's different.
Yeah, look, those Greek prepositions, man, they're always changing all the time.
King James Greek, right? Is that how that works?
Oh, man. All right, here we go.
KJV get title. Yeah.
Exactly, KJV get title. Which, by the way, is one of the citations in his so-called dissertation. It literally just in all caps says KJV : get book title. That's it. That's the whole citation.
There's several in there, several references that are similar to that.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, guys, do hit like. I'm still seeing about 20 people not having liked this video.
But see, in almost all cultures of the world at this time, and even after this time, people were marrying very close kin. It was very common for the pharaohs to marry sisters.
Hey, Kent got that right. Take a drink.
Very common. Charles Darwin, just 170 years ago, deliberately married his first cousin.
Also true. Take a drink. So did Edgar Allan Poe.
Because he thought it would give him, improved children.
And take a drink for Kent being dumb. Look, we don't have any evidence of Darwin being a eugenicist because, spoiler alert, eugenics hadn't really been invented yet. Second, we have a lot of writing from Darwin and contemporaries and friends and family, and it seems very much like he was legitimately in love with the woman he married and stayed in love with her for his whole life. And like, if you were looking for a happily ever after marriage, it's a pretty close one. Now, was it a good idea to marry your first cousin? I don't recommend it, but then again, like I said, it is the case that if you're in a lineage that does not have a history of close marriage, it's probably not going to be a big problem. And based on his kids, it doesn't seem like it was. He lost one daughter in childhood, which was pretty typical at the time. You're probably going to lose one or two of your kids at that time because there were just so many childhood diseases. There's no real indication that any of his children had any significant genetic diseases as a result of this relatively close marriage to kin. Yeah, it's just the fact is, in cultures where you have preferences for first cousin marriage, which does happen, there are a lot of places like that, that does actually cause increased prevalence of genetic diseases in the population. But in places where there is no big preference for that, and it's actually usually discouraged, like it is in most of Western Europe, and even was at the time, the occasional first cousin marriage really isn't going to cause much of a problem. And no one thought that Darwin was going to get super kids by marrying his cousin, least of all Darwin. I can't believe I have to say that, but apparently I do. Like, this is literally like this is way too many parallels to a conversation in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia about maybe Mac having superhero kids if you marry the right woman.
He said, I'm smart.
Maybe Mac is a fan of Mr. Kent Hovind.
Well, he is a creationist, as we learned in that episode, because science is wrong sometimes. Silver Harlow for $5 says, in a police sting called Operation AIG, a gang of Nixon impersonators were all arrested at once. Okay, that relies on the old slang term for arrest. Okay, so, well, first, Nixon's nickname was Tricky Dick, and bag 'em, or get bagged, is an old-timey slang for being arrested, so very clever, Silver Harlow. I'll take a drink for that. I like that one.
No, she comes from a smart line, so the kids will be smart. Well,
There's no evidence he thought that.
Didn't work. Okay, they had 10 children. Most of them died of
No.
horrible diseases when they were young. Some were severely retarded.
No.
Well, it's called inbreeding, okay?
No, none of that's true. Just take a drink. None of that's true. For some reason, Kent Hovind thinks it's a rhetorical victory for him to make up a slanderous version of Charles Darwin's biography. I don't understand why he thinks that's a thing that he should do. All it does is just make him come across as petty and mean-spirited, as well as a liar.
Yeah, I mean, if it's patently false, then it makes him seem like
guys,
obviously like a liar. But yeah,
Chesh Mom is in the chat. If you remember, send some Mothra emoji.
Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck if, go to family reunion to pick up women. Yeah, you might be a redneck.
Yeah, take a drink for that bad joke.
So 2,500 years after the creation, God finally says, okay, guys, that's it. No more. You can't marry close kin. Plus, people say, what about genetic similarity, marrying sisters? Well, duh. Adam married his rib.
Oh, goodness. Take a drink. So here's something. I'm not actually sure where the rib part comes in, because it actually says from Adam's side. So I don't know. It's a weird thing. But then again, I guess it's not any more weird than everyone assuming that the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil was an apple, even though that's said nowhere in any of the texts, and it's a very late tradition. So yeah, I don't know. David DB Numbers says, coming across as a petty liar is the most honest thing Kent has ever done. I can't technically agree, literally, but yeah, it does seem that way.
How much more genetically similar can you get? Okay. People say, how do we get the 4 blood types from only one couple, from one person?
Roxanne Dwyer says, drinking again. It's Kent with Bent. That's how we do it. It's the Kent with Bent, Eric with Erica, Jackson with Jackson, Matt with Maddie shows, which are usually only on Tuesday, are the drinking shows. But this is a surprise extra one, which is why it's unexpected. So yeah. Also, do make sure, if you haven't seen it, you go take a look at a thumbnail, because yeah, I definitely photoshopped Kent's face onto a pregnant woman. Badly, but it's still funny for me. Mostly because it's Kent and he would hate it.
Oh, there's an interesting article about that on answersingenesis.org. If you want to read the whole article about how do you get 4 blood types, A, B, AB, and O. Type O is by far the most common. I've got type O positive, which is the most common blood there is. A negative is the rarest blood. But how do you get 4 blood types from one person? Actually, just one person. Adam, really. It's not a problem. They cover all that in that article there. But
so hold on. Okay, hold on. I need to process what just happened. Because what that heavily implies is that Eve was basically a clone of Adam, except she had a double copy of his X chromosome instead of his Y chromosome. So the effective population size at day 1 for humanity was 1. Okay, guys, in the chat, let me know if that's also what you're getting from that idea, was that Eve is basically a clone of Adam, which means you don't have up to 4 alleles per gene. You have max 2.
I don't even think I got that far. I was baffled before he even got to that.
Well, it also means that there's only one version of the X chromosome at that point. So your actual effective population size is slightly below 1. Which is just amazing. That's quite a thing. That is not where I was expecting Kent to go. Was the effective human population size was slightly lower than 1. All right, so other people in chat are confirming that that's also what the implication seems to be. I'm just going to take a drink.
Still says AB negative. AB
oh yeah, look,
type.
I don't expect Kent to get it right that A is the.
It's more complex. It doesn't really purposes of this. It is a lot more complicated than A positive versus A negative. What does a positive mean? RH and I don't even think he has any idea how any of that works. It's been a while for me.
Yeah.
So I'd have to refresh my memory. But like, yeah, no, he's getting things wrong that are so bad. Like I said, like your conclusion you got from that, I didn't even get that far. I was like, wait, what did he say about blood types? What? Like,
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, it's nuts.
So
How wrong he is.
there's a couple things in chat I want to address, and then we're going to take a quick break, refresh drinks, and come back. So one of them is the Sisyphean Bead says, my ex-best friend thought she had one less rib than me, and I was well concerned. So it is actually possible for someone to be born with fewer ribs than normal, but if it's only one, because they usually go in pairs, it's probably wrong. Unless there was some kind of injury that resulted in like the need to remove a rib, which I don't even know what that would be. So yeah. Vandalia 1998 asks, have you seen the AIG article he is talking about? I have not. If anyone would like to send it to me if they can find it, because I am not even sure it's still up on their website, because I feel like by now maybe one of their geneticists would have been like, hey, this doesn't really work. Maybe we shouldn't. But then again, they have Jensen saying ridiculous things like we don't actually have Neanderthal genomes. So maybe it is still up there and they're still going with it. I don't know. It's really hard to predict when AIG is going to find an argument so bad that even they can't use it versus when they're just going to go with it no matter how bad it is. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh my drink, and then we're going to be back for another roughly hour. And there you go. We're gonna do some channel wrap up, see if anyone has anything to plug, and we'll be out of here. So please do stick with us. Don't change that channel. We're gonna be right back after this message from a clock. All right, and we are back. And how many people stuck with me? Oh, More than we had when we left. That's unusual. Welcome everyone who came in here to see
Let's
the
take another
clock.
break and see how many people are here. And get back in.
Right. If you're just joining us, please do hit like. It really is appreciated. Yeah. Let's get into this. Oh, by the way, I do want to point out that Roxanne Dwyer said that she was taught in church that women had one less rib than men. So that's a thing that was bandied about occasionally in a church I went to as a kid, but it wasn't like a point that we were taught. It was just like some people would say, like, well, you know, I think women have like an extra or a fewer rib or whatever. But I don't know if I ever actually believed that. Oh, anyway, here we go.
I had heard that too in church from. Yeah, I don't think that's real. And they're like, yeah, I don't think so either, but maybe.
Yeah.
And then maybe we asked because we had a doctor. No, not how that works. Right. It's the end of that.
Oh, and apparently Inkboy says that the clock music is the real high point of the show. I still prefer my old intermission, but it was getting copyright claimed, so I decided to stop using it lest I continue to get copyright claimed. However, it did tell you about my merch store, my Patreon, and channel memberships, so feel free to do any of that stuff. Actually, in terms of also my wish list, I think. Actually, I need to add a desk chair to my wish list. This desk chair is starting to get a little bit falling apart. So here we go. Yeah.
So marrying sisters is not a big deal compared to especially when you compare it to the evolution problem, okay?
I just want to quote that. Marrying sisters is not a big deal. Kent Hovind.
Especially compared to the evolution problem.
Well, hey, look,
if not knowing the difference between evolution, abiogenesis, the Big Bang.
Normally, I'm against quote mining, but with Kent, I don't care because Kent doesn't care about quote mining, so I don't care about quote mining Kent. Also,
why would you?
Yeah,
he doesn't. Why would I?
Exactly. For $5, Vandalian1998 says, it's not AIG, but I found an article, someone talked about it, sent it to you on Twitter and Facebook. All right, I will take a look. Thank you very much, Vandalian1998. I probably won't take a look during the stream, though. So it'll be something that, like, I'll read, and if it's good enough, I might respond directly to it, but it'll probably end up being sort of like in the background of, like, things creationists have said that I can bring up.
And you don't notice this reading your Bible, but the graph we have in our seminar notebook, which is in the bookstore, or we have them laminated if you want them for placemats when your skeptic friends come for lunch. You can really stir up a conversation with one of these things.
That is so weird. Can you imagine going to someone's like house for lunch and they set out a placemat that's a chronology of like biblical figures with their ages and like genealogy, like reproduction ages? Like, it would be so freaking. I wouldn't talk about it. I
could, based on like how I grew up, I could imagine like having gone to someone's house and seeing something like that, and it being a talking point.
Okay, I'll just say this: if someone did that, if I went to someone's place for lunch and I saw that as a placemat, not only would I not talk about it, I would hesitate to continue having lunches with that person because that's such a weird thing to do.
It is weird. But
all right, here we go.
I think every Sunday school class ought to have one of these charts nailed up there. Adam lived long enough to know his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson. Noah's daddy would have known Adam for 56 years.
Weird how that never comes up in the Bible, right? Like, no one's ever like, and then Noah went and talked to his great-great-grandfather. Like, if you read the narrative of the Bible, it seems like people really only interact with their like fathers and sons and sometimes grandchildren. So why aren't there stories about great-great-grandfathers interacting with their great-great-grandchildren? Maybe it's because even the authors didn't intend you to take these ages literally, which is a common practice in the Middle East, in like, you know, the Near East and all those areas at the time. Just a thought.
People say the Bible was handed down generation after generation. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, it literally was, but okay.
Well, you don't know what you're talking about then, I guess.
I guess. Let's see what Kent has to say about how the Bible wasn't passed down from generation to generation. Like, what's the other option?
It came from the future and it's going backwards in time.
Oh, it's like the anomaly from Best of
But
Both
it's
Worlds, the
still
series finale
always
for Star Trek: The
there.
Next Generation.
It's still always there because it's through entire timeline.
Yeah,
It's from a different direction.
the Bible is antimatter, apparently.
Adam lived long enough to know Lamech.
Okay.
Of course, he obviously would have known Methuselah and all these other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Methuselah lived long enough to know
They all hung out together, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Noah and Shem, his son, all
Mm-hmm.
three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem lived long enough to know Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Okay, these are all generations. So I'm just gonna take a quick drink for Ken saying the Bible wasn't handed down over generations, because look at all these generations I'm gonna name. That's not how anything works. I'm just taking a big old drink.
No, the Bible wasn't handed down generation after generation. But
Kent, you literally just named people that are separated by generations. What is happening right now? My brain is melting. Oh my goodness. Sure, you didn't name successive, like, adjacent generations according to the genealogy, but you're still just naming people in different generations that would have had to have things passed down to them. Never mind the fact that this doesn't touch on anything about, like, the transmission of the biblical texts throughout actual confirmed history, which definitely happened from one generation to the next. I mean, you had different generations of just scribes of necessity, because people don't live forever. I honestly, I don't even know how Kent thinks that he just made a point here. Like, normally I can see why he thinks this was a good thing to say. It wasn't.
Think when he's wearing a tie, it actually does make him smarter, and he just gets even dumber when he doesn't wear one?
It cuts off the part of the blood to his brain that goes to, like, the stupid part that just generates complete stream of consciousness nonsense when he wears the tie. I think that's what happens.
What if... No, never mind.
I
don't want to talk about
that. Okay, I'm gonna take another drink because I can't handle that, which just happened. That just made zero sense. Even in Kent's own terms.
Wait, maybe we're watching this video the wrong way. Maybe it's supposed to start at the end and go backwards in time.
But like Memento style?
Maybe, yeah, everything Kent says is backwards. That would make sense.
Would it? Or would it just make...
No, not Memento style, like straight up time flows in the opposite direction. So...
Oh, like playing the rock record backwards so you can hear the hidden message?
All these stupid things that are heard get absorbed by Kent's mouth.
Well, I'll tell you what.
If you go backwards in time. And eventually, all that dumb stuff never gets... goes anywhere, but...
You reverse the Kent Hovind video, and you let me know how it goes.
It's not going to work.
No, probably not. All right, here we go. Oh, for $2, Vandalia 1998 says, 2,500-year-old game of telephone and had no mistakes. So actually, interestingly enough, we have a wide range of manuscripts of various biblical texts, including some that are fairly ancient, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, the various Septuagint manuscripts. The oldest Masoretic texts go back about 1,000 years. The Dead Sea Scrolls go about 2,000 years. For the New Testament, basically starting in like the 3rd century, we have some pretty good texts in terms of manuscripts. And actually, there's a surprisingly low number of textual invariants that have any real impact on the meaning of the text. But that's also not very unusual. It turns out that ancient scribes were actually pretty good, and they cross-checked their work. And while there were scribal errors that popped in and that, then became sort of like stuck in various lineages of texts, for the most part, ancient texts we can be pretty well assured that we have the major items of what they were trying to say, and even in some cases, some of the details. So, and that's true for ancient texts generally. There really wasn't that much quote unquote like corruption. So like, oh, now we don't know what like the Iliad said originally. We basically do. The same is true for most of the Bible. We basically know. Oh, Tab just joined the channel at Tetrapod. So everyone, send us some tetrapods for the new channel member. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna go with Tab. If you would prefer something else, please let me know, because I do not want to call you something that you don't want to be called. All right. Oh, and I think we just got a Sal invitation for Bent Hovind. I would also like to watch that. If that happens, I want to know about it, and I want to be there in chat.
I would like that.
Yeah. Didn't Sal think you were an atheist until recently?
I think maybe he thought that, but I can't remember, and I don't want to.
Hey, I mean,
I don't want to get it wrong and put words in his mouth.
Okay.
I think so though.
it turns
I
out
thought so.
Bent Hovind, along with Maddie, one of my other co-hosts, Christians.
Not an atheist.
Mm-mm.
Christian.
And in fact, Erica also
Protestant.
not an atheist. Erica is agnostic, and I think the only regular co-host I have is Jackson, who's an atheist. I think Jackson's my only regular atheist co-host. Anyway, here we go.
Shem lived after the flood long enough to know Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, there is some controversy. Notice on my chart, I have Terah, Abraham's father, at 70 when Abraham is born. There are some who argue, no, he was 130 when Abraham was born. There is really quite a controversy. Terah had several other children besides Abraham. And there's some argument that says, well, he was 70 when he begat his first child, but it wasn't Abraham. I've read all the controversy as carefully as I know how to read anything.
Which is not very... Because remember, Kent Hovind apparently is functionally illiterate.
And I put this in here with a footnote that, look, there is some controversy. I don't know for sure that this is correct. I believe that it is, and I give all the reasons why. Go to my website, Dr. Dino.
Oh, sorry. So apparently, Evidence Reasons did not take the position that he thought that, which is Sal, that Bent Hovind was an atheist. I must have misremembered a conversation. Sorry about that. That is my mistake. And in no way does that reflect on Sal, everybody. Sal is a great guy.
I thought I remembered something like that too, though. So like it could have been just misunderstanding something. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to put words in my mouth. I like Sal.
Look, if you
guys aren't subscribed to it, Evidence and Reasons, you guys should do that.
Yeah.
Go subscribe.
If you don't like Sal, I feel like... Okay, I'll say this. So
you don't have to agree with everything he says to subscribe to him and watch his videos like that.
There's a few ways that I can tell how likely I am to want to associate with someone. One is like, if dogs just don't like you, that's probably suspicious. But another one is, if you don't like Sal, that's probably suspicious. Sal's a very likable guy. And no, I don't agree with him on a lot of things. So what? All right, here we go.
What I see in Sal is strong attempts at honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rare. That's rare in anyone. So when I don't know if I can describe it better than that, but like that's kind of how I see it, and that's to be commended. So
also, Snorefoot says Klingon. There is Klingon on screen, but if you had anything more specific about Klingon, go ahead, because this is a pro Klingon language channel. Here we go.
.com, and there's a long article about how old was Terah when Abram was born. If he was 70, then Shem could have known Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If we add another 60 years in there, then he could have only known Abraham and Isaac. He could not have known Jacob.
Okay.
Not a big deal, okay? Nothing to get upset about and split the church over, okay?
All right, so
I agree with Kent, actually. It doesn't matter. So I'll take a drink for that.
People in this genealogy, they have like 7, 8 great grandchildren, like that many great. So that would be, I don't know, tens of thousands of grandchildren. Why do you think they're all going to be hanging out with each other? Someone might know their great grandfather, but that guy's probably not going to know you if he's got like tens of thousands of descendants. And if he's still alive 800 years, it just seems kind of weird.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Okay. But just so you're aware, there is a conflict, and you may want to study it for yourself and see if my logic is correct. I put 70. I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. I may not be right. It may be 130. There are some other creation ministries. Oh, it's 130. Okay, well, And they go through all their logic. Why I read all that stuff about, how old was Terah when they left? He was 205, and Abraham left, and you don't have enough time in there for him to be 100 and get Isaac and all that stuff. You can read it for yourself and try to decipher it if you'd like, okay?
I don't care. I will never have an opinion on that quote-unquote controversy, because I can't imagine anything about my life or my beliefs or how I read the Bible that would ever be affected by whether or not Terah had Abraham at 70 or 130. I can't even imagine why anyone would even talk about it as a controversial issue. It's... yeah. Finding Truth. So I'm still friendly with Finding Truth, the Sisyphean Beat, who asked, what happened to the other creationists you were friends with? It's just that he hasn't come up with a thing to have on the channel, and his last outputs I have not found to be significantly, or to be interesting enough to want to respond to directly. But that does remind me, though, he did send me a paper, well, quote-unquote paper, about the salubrious nature of ingesting camel urine. So I may have to take a look at that. Because if it has the same caliber as the paper he sent me about whether or not fly wings have cures for diseases on them, it's really, 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 really bad. Because if you haven't seen that video, check that out on my channel. There's a video about the amazing new Islamic research on fly wings. It's amazing in that it's amazing that anyone thought that this was a paper that was worth anything. By the way, the sample size for this paper, 4. They used 4 flies. Also, they did not actually give all their data. So there's that too.
Yeah, but some of the data is probably not good for their conclusion, maybe. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter, because with a sample size of 4, you literally cannot get statistically significant results, no matter
Do
what.
what they do in video games and add like a couple zeros at the end. The 4 is now 4 billion.
I still remain fairly convinced that my chart is correct. But I'm very willing to listen to reason and logic if you have some on that.
Are you, though?
Yeah, no, he's not.
Are you, though, Kent? I feel like you're not.
Anyway, Jacob is the guy that had 4 wives, and he got tricked. Jacob, his name means trickster or something similar to that.
Okay, here we go. We're going to look up Jacob. Jacob name etymology. Here we go. Lots of clickety-clackety. Let's see. Jacob comes from the Hebrew name Yaakov, later translated into Latin as Jacobus. That's great. That doesn't tell me the
Follow,
meaning.
to be behind, to supplant, circumvent, assail, overreach.
Yeah.
Heal, or may protect, or sorry, it could also mean may God protect. But that's according to Wikipedia. Is that what Uncle Kent, no relation, calls it?
That is what he calls it.
Really, what does the King James say?
So basically, it means either God protects, or it means follows, because he was the second son, not the first one. So let's just drink for Kent needlessly getting name etymologies wrong. I don't even know why.
He was always tricking his brother. And finally, when it comes time for him to get married, what you sow, that shall you also reap. He gets tricked by his own father-in-law. Ends up marrying the wrong girl.
Well, prospective father-in-law, because when he was tricked, was it... Okay, it doesn't matter. Look, at one point, Jacob agreed to labor for some number of years for a guy so that he could marry his daughter, and then the guy substituted the other daughter that he didn't have any interest in. And then he was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to work for you for another period of time so I can marry the daughter I do want to marry. So it's a whole thing. Also, I can't imagine how awkward the marriage would be if you married 2 sisters. My goodness. That is not a thing I would want to deal with. Here we go.
Okay, you can read the story. So anyway, he ends up with 4 wives and has 13 kids. 12 boys, 1 girl. Anybody know the girl's name? Dinah, right. One of these boys, Dad likes him.
Next week. That'll be on the quiz next week.
Yeah, that's that. If you don't remember that for next Kent with Bent, you're fired from the channel. No, I'm kidding. I don't even know how that would work.
That's just the kind of stuff that Kent usually says. That's on the quiz next week.
Yeah.
Right. This is so trivial. Like, to the whole point he's trying to make, what does it matter?
Yeah, I don't know.
Best, and so he makes him a coat of many colors, Joseph. The brothers get jealous, beat him up, throw him down in the well, and end up down in Egypt, and he becomes the vice pharaoh, or whatever you call him. And so
the regent, I could call him that. Vice pharaoh is definitely not what he was, but okay.
So while he's in Egypt as the vice pharaoh, he invites the brothers to come down and live with him, and it's a really amazing story. But finally,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Regent or vizier. There's a whole bunch of things for the guy who is delegated executive authority by an absolute monarch, and vice pharaoh isn't one of those things.
Well, is there a specific term in Egyptian?
Not that I'm aware of.
But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I think I know what he means when he says vice pharaoh. So from that perspective, I'll say it's fine. I guess. I don't know.
Vandali 1998 for $5 says, surprise, but Kent is wrong. He only had 2 wives. The other 2 were just concubines, I think. Look, I don't honestly remember, so I would have to look it up. But it also...
wrong, that's...
Yeah, it also wouldn't surprise me if he had 2 wives and 2 concubines. So, in case people don't know, concubines are basically women whom you don't have to treat as full wives, so they don't actually have to have a full, their own house and their own... they don't have the same sort of visitation rights, and you generally don't have to pay their family for any problems that might arise if you divorce them or anything. However, they do provide legitimate heirs if they become pregnant. So basically, they're like slaves who provide legitimate heirs. It's really not a great arrangement for the concubine.
Do they have a say in whether or not they're going to be a concubine? Something like, you're my concubine now, and you're like...
Depends on the culture in question.
I don't know why anyone would agree to that, but...
I mean, if your other option was like, we execute you, then I guess maybe.
Yeah, that's... I watched a video once that basically talked about how forced consent is not consent.
Yeah,
that's what that sounds like to me.
Once you bring in the potential of actual force being used, if you decide not to consent to something, you can't legitimately really consent to it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, if you say you don't agree to this, I'll shoot you, and then someone's like, okay, well then I agree to it. Yeah. They don't actually agree to it. Even if they think they do, no. They just don't want to get shot. And it's not real consent. Anyway.
All right, here we go.
Jacob is introducing, or Joseph's introducing his dad Jacob to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how old are you? And Jacob said, I'm 130. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been. Well, duh, Jacob, you tricked everybody else all your life. Of course you're going to have a bad life that way, But anyway, that's another story. He says, and they have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers. I read that 30-some years ago as a brand new Christian and thought, what is this? Jacob says, I'm 130, but this is really nothing compared to my ancestors. Well, yes, that is correct. When you consider Jacob could have known Shem, Arphaxad, Selah, and Eber.
Weird how that's never brought up in the text, but okay.
Well, if you're 130, but you know a 600-year-old guy down the street, you just don't feel so old anymore, okay?
Oh, that was a joke. Take a drink.
Anyway, let's go back to the age of the earth. The textbook says the earth is billions of years old. Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning. So was he lying? Was he stupid? Or was he right?
Well, like we said last time, in Kent with Bent 76, he cannot literally be correct in that. Because according to Genesis, humans were made on day 6, which means they weren't made at the very beginning of all things. So he must have been talking about the beginning of humanity. So, there you go.
I don't know of any other choices. If you think of one, let me know. I'll add it to my PowerPoint.
Well, Kent, just watch this. You can make a whack an atheist about it or something, even though there's no good reason to think that there's any atheists involved. But I look forward to it. By the way, in one of Kent Hovind's more recent Whack and Atheist, I think the most recent one as of this recording, which is, again, the 5th of March, Kent Hovind did call me a very weak atheist. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means I can't bench much, or maybe it is that
Start bench pressing more, I think.
Oh. It could also just mean that I'm barely an atheist, but I also don't know what that means. I barely believe there are no gods.
Right.
Make a whole lot of sense to me, but okay.
It's the only ones I can figure out. He was right or he was wrong. And if he's wrong, then he's stupid, or he's deliberately lying.
Guys, if you're wrong, you're stupid. Kent Hovind said it, so you know what, Kent, cheers, because you just called yourself extremely stupid.
Double done.
Yeah, that's fun. Here we go.
Textbook says billions of years, millions of years ago, billions of years ago. This is in books all over the country.
Right.
Yes, that's, you know what, that's true. Take a drink for Kent getting something right.
And even many Christians are teaching this. Hugh Ross, Reasons to Believe, has a large ministry teaching the earth is billions of years old, writing all kinds of books about it. He says God needed billions of years to get it just right.
I am going to press X to doubt. I don't have an extensive knowledge of Hugh Ross's output. I don't think he says that, because I'm pretty sure Hugh Ross, you know, believing in the omnipotence of God, believes that God could do whatever he wants in any time frame. He just doesn't believe that he did.
Yeah, to get it right. No, that's not what evolution is. It's not. It's just a lengthy process. Why does it matter that it's a lengthy process in regards to the length of the human lifespan?
I don't know.
That ratio is
you
not
have
required to be any specific number for you to understand science, Kent. Give up on YEC, Kent.
By the way, the elusive man says, Dapper, you should bench press more logical arguments according to Kent. Yes, obviously. Which, by the way, I love the name The Elusive Man, because Mass Effect is like my favorite game series of all time, because they're amazing. And yeah, I love it. The only reason right now that I don't own the remastered version is, one, because I'm a cheap bastard who doesn't have a whole bunch of money, and two, I can't really put it on my Steam wishlist yet. So if that has changed, then let me know, everyone. If you can put that on your Steam wishlist, it's going on there today.
a different God than I do. Don Stoner. I had lunch with Don Stoner. Gerald Schroeder. Nice guys. They believe the earth is billions of years old. The Navigators Bible Study Group, they publish all of Hugh Ross's books. It's called Nav Press. They've got a castle in Colorado. I got saved because of the Navigators Bible Study Group. I love the Navigators. They led my brother to the Lord, and because of that, I ended up getting saved. And they bought a castle in Europe, took it apart, and brought it over and rebuilt it in Colorado Springs.
That's really weird. I hope it's true, because it's really weird. And I like when weird things are true. And we've got some hot plots in the chat, so thanks. That's going on for success, but it's also sort of like a goodbye and good luck kind of thing. Not sure why we have them.
Whole castles. Anybody been there to the Navigator?
Oh, it's because Dr. Osiris is heading out. All right, well, Dr. Osiris, that makes sense. Sleep well, and yeah, hot plot.
Castle. It's incredible. This monster castle. I went and spent 3 or 4 days there. Those guys were awesome. They would get up at 5 in the morning, go off by themselves, and memorize. They memorize. Here they read the Bible like crazy and still don't get the importance of this age of the earth issue.
Or maybe they do, because it's not important. Okay.
They teach the earth is billions of years old. James Dobson.
Zemorph says quote-unquote weak atheist equals agnostic atheist. Well, I mean, that's like saying an atheist theist as far as I'm concerned. I'm really not a fan of the Dawkins, like, 4 corners diagram thing. It requires special pleading, and I really don't want to have the argument about it right now, but, like, it's dumb. It unnecessarily muddies the water by conflating knowledge with confidence as well as making category errors and special pleading on behalf of the position of atheism. So, yeah.
Had Hugh Ross on his program as a guest, and he got more hate mail, James Dobson did, from that program than anything else he's ever done, is what he said in the news. People got all upset with James Dobson because James Dobson said, I believe the earth is billions of years old. The Dakes Study Bible. Now, Francis Dakes, if I have the story straight, and I believe I do.
Okay, so I don't really care about Kent Hovind pointing out that various other Christians believe the earth is old. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. And unless we get to something other than Kent whining that other Christians disagree with him, we're just going to keep going. Does that sound good for everyone? Yeah, okay.
Was not what the Spirit revealed to him. He just got visions. Oh, wow. And most of his footnotes, I wouldn't trust this to be true. Schofield Study Bible. My standard version with me. He said he talked me into getting an old Schofield Bible. And then I wore that one out and got another one. He believes the earth is billions of years old. About the age of the earth. And we did a couple of programs and they aired them. And I showed how the earth cannot be billions of years old. And then he had me come on with Hugh Ross and had a debate. And John has slowly, over the last 5 years.
Okay, so this John is John Ankerberg. You can find it on YouTube, a debate between Hugh Ross and Kent Hovind. I would highly recommend it because, I mean, it was a PR disaster for Kent Hovind at the time, and he knew it. Robert Madewell says James Dobson is horrible. I do not know enough to have a position on James Dobson. Inkboy says, keep on skipping. Kent sounds smarter that way. Oh, yeah.
Become an old earth creationist. He has followed Hugh Ross. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because Hugh Ross kicked your ass hard. I'm surprised that Kent can still walk after that ass kicking from Hugh Ross, honestly. It was not quite as brutal as his debate with King Crocoduck about physics. Because, I mean, that's legendary. But, like, yeah, that Hugh Ross debate did not go well for Kent Hovind. And I really do highly recommend it. It's long, and it can be a bit dry. But, like, it was rough for Kent. And I'm not someone who agrees with Hugh Ross on a lot of things. Like, his weird anti-evolution stances make no sense to me. His organization's complete lack of even attempt to make a model for biological diversity, I don't get. But in that debate, because, you know, Hugh Ross is like a cosmologist, and yeah, he absolutely trounced Kent at that one.
Yeah, Hugh Ross on his show the other night. This is October 2005.
Oh, hey, now we know this was in 2005. I thought this was in the late 90s, so no, it's in 2005. Which does mean that that textbook that we thought sounded old was 11 years old when Kent quoted it. Thanks, Kent. Thanks for letting us know that your citations from children's textbooks are over a decade out of date. I love it.
Now, he's a nice guy in many ways. I've preached many times on the same platform with John Ankerberg at Sealing the Mind conferences. Nice guy, smart guy, very smart guy. But he's wrong about that one, okay? Dead Iggy.
This is more.
Big name TV preacher, you know, has this beautiful charts he preaches in front of, you know, the big posters. He wrote the book, The Case for the Creator, The Case for Christ. What other ones did he write, Jonathan? This is on my radio program, you know. But he believes the earth is billions of years old again. I said, well, he's done that about 10 times. Why didn't he have me on, you know? Okay.
Okay.
Because you're wrong about the age of the earth.
So, yeah, here's the thing. The reason that people might not want Kent on is because he's laughably wrong about almost everything he says. Not everything. This is Fiend Beat asks, who is Hugh Ross? So Hugh Ross is the founder and, like, chief guy in charge of the Christian ministry Reasons to Believe, which is an anti-evolutionist old earth ministry that accepts the like astronomical and broadly geological evidence that the earth is ancient and the universe is, you know, 14 billion years old and whatnot. But they basically then go into like irreducible complexity arguments and like weird nonsensical genetic arguments and things like that about evolution. And but they're pretty decent on physics. So like, I don't know, they're like a quarter of the way there, I guess, on the whole science thing. But I will say that by all accounts, including Kent's, Hugh Ross is a really nice guy. So That's nice. Unlike Kent, who by most accounts is an absolute monster. So, Hugh Ross, way better than Kent, because one, he's wrong about way less, and two, not an abusive asshole. That's all it takes. Be less wrong, which is not hard, and, you know, don't be a child-abusing, wife-abusing piece of shit.
Also, that's difficult.
Yeah. It's really not that hard to not abuse people. And it's also not that hard to be more right than Kent. It's actually very hard to be less right than Kent. Basically, you have to be a flat earther. Be less right than Kent. Here we go.
He says the Earth is billions of years old. There's a long story of how he took over that program, you know. And
Okay.
Chuck Colson has from North Carolina called me, a year ago now. She said, Brother Hope.
Ben Dolly 1998 for $5 says, surprise, but Kent is wrong. He only had 2 wives. The other 2 were just... Oh, sorry, no, I already read that. That's just me looking at my viewer activity for the first time and noticing a new thing. But hey, thanks for the $5 anyway. There's been a fair bit of whiskey today. Just putting that out there.
Billy Graham's old...
40 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, Billy Graham, yeah, great.
And he watched your videotape, be thousands, if not millions. You say, why does it matter? Well, duh. Like there. Now, maybe he's not a cult leader, okay? But
watches your videotape doesn't mean they're going to agree with you when you're wrong about the age of the Earth. I picked that out from you skipping ahead, but he even watched my videotape. Well, you're wrong, Kent.
Right?
I've watched your videotape. I still think you're wrong.
Yeah.
A cult tendency to say, you need me to lead.
All right. The rest of this is going to be nonsense, right? We've skipped through so much of it, and there's been no actual claims about Kent. It's just Kent whining that not everyone agrees with him. So we're going to start wrapping it up. Okay. So let's see. Let's take... Oh, first, Bent, do you have anything that you want to plug?
I have nothing I want to plug yet.
Okay. So let's see. Let's take a look at my schedule. So Tuesday, I'm planning on an Eric with Erica. I double-checked, or I asked Erica earlier today if she's good for, you know, Eric with Erica on Tuesday. I hadn't heard back as of the time of starting the stream. Actually, you know what? Let's double-check. Did she get back? But that is the plan right now, is Eric with Erica on Tuesday. That will be at... So actually I have to coordinate with her because... Oh, drink for Mothra. So I do have to coordinate with her because times are changing for me, but not for her. So I'm not exactly sure what time it'll be. It'll probably be the time that you guys are used to, which will be 5 Pacific. Because, yeah, time zones are stupid, and daylight savings time is even stupider. So then on Thursday, we should be having the... let me double check, actually, because I don't want to lie to you guys. Give me a second. Let me go and take a look at what I have uploaded and whatnot. So, it should be the next episode, I believe, of the Dan Biddle. Yeah, so it's going to be another Dan Biddle, a new Biddle series. This one's going to be called Dan is Mean to Homo Habilis, because Dan is mean to Homo Habilis for, like, no reason. So let me get back to the calendar. And then on the 12th, I am currently expecting a Leaving Young Earth Creationism. I got an email from a guy who knows someone I know who was on Reddit. That's a whole chain of whatever, but yeah, it's probably going to be a Leaving Young Earth Creationism on the 12th. Also, on the... If you like Maddie, if you like Chesh, if you like Erica's fiance, who also is there, if you like TD Lane, who doesn't have a YouTube channel, but, you know, bounces around. A
bunch of likable people.
Right. Come watch us play D&D. Last time, Chesh's character got hit by a feeble mind spell, so she's basically just a giant dummy who can't talk. And also, she panicked and ran away, so we have no idea where she is, and she had a really good hide check, so good luck to us finding her. She did say that she was going to be rolling a new character just in case, because, yeah, that might actually be necessary. Also, I am working in the background on a new RPG project that will go out on my off-topic channel. So if you're not subscribed to Top Hats Off, you might want to check that out. It's my off-topic channel. It posts bits of art that I've done. There's a music visualization. There's some RPG content on there already. It's a bunch of nonsense, but I don't know. If you really like my stuff, you might like it. That's about it. I will be appearing on Jackson Wheat's channel, I think Thursday. So check for that. I don't remember exactly what time it is, but if you put on notifications for Jackson Wheat's channel, it'll probably come up. Let's see. I think that's basically it. So unless anyone has any quick things that are really important, I'm not seeing anything that's terribly important. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to leave you guys with the end credits. So I do hope that you guys tune in on Tuesday for Eric with Erica, where I will be drinking more of this whiskey, because apparently that's my life now. Bye. Thanks for watching this video, but before you go, I'd like to take a minute to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above: Bob Knob, Bent Hovind, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Chris Love, Landon Knoll, Sphincter of Doom, and Patrick Dennis. Without the help of the people whose name you see on screen right now, this channel simply wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join the team, there's links in the description to my Patreon, as well as a join button right below this video that will allow you to join on YouTube. Joining gets you access to an exclusive Discord server, early access to my videos, often more than a month in advance, as well as other perks depending on how much you decide to pledge. However, if a monthly or annual pledge isn't for you, there are other ways to support the channel, including a merch store down in the description. And hey, just liking and sharing this video always helps a lot. Thank you very much. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur.